Hey, this is Al from Transformational Gaming. Appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you coming to the channel. I know it's been a while since I've been on here, but I went on vacation for a little bit and now I'm back. So appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. The views and the watch time has come down just a little bit, but I know you guys will support me to get that back up. But today I want to talk to you guys about the launch of the nvidia 40 series. Before we get into all that, I like to say, hey, if you like the content that we bring in, feel free to come back. We enjoy your participation, and there's always room for one more on the channel. Alright, so let's get into it. So as many of you guys know, and I haven't really made a formal unboxing or anything like that. I didn't think that was necessary for the 3090, even though the 3090 really just came out. I am an owner of the 3090, and even though this video is about the 40 series, I do think it's necessary to look back and ask the question, hey, why would you buy the 3090 series if you knew the 40 series was coming out? Well, that's a good question. I got a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to go through all the reasons and things like that, nor am I going to talk a lot about that, but I do want to talk about my thoughts on the 40 series, what's this all about, and contrast it with the 3090 that I have. Now, let's make no bones about it. The 4090 is kind of a test case of what we know so far, right? So we know that Moore's Law is dying, right? I mean, there's probably a couple more efficiency things that we can do to add on more transistors to a processor, but the reality of the matter is that, you know, unless we're going to make atomic processors, we are already down to 5 nanometer, and let's just be honest, we're not going to go much lower than that. It's going to become a power game. It's already started with this GPU. This GPU has a nominal watt of 450 watts, and that's a lot for my PC. My power supply is at 1,000 watts. Now I got a i9 9900K, and so with that, it doesn't take a lot of power. I think that's around 300 watts. The PCI slot is 4.0 generation, and then I think the DDR, the memory is DDR4. So, which I was thinking about upgrading, which I probably need to do. But with all that being said, the 4090 is again a test case of where we're going as far as Moore's Law is concerned. It's starting to be a power game. The 4090 already goes up to 600 watts. It requires 4 power slots, 8-pin power slots, 600 watts. Now, don't get me wrong, and this is according to Gamers Nexus, Steve over at Gamers Nexus. From what I see from him, the 3090 Ti series is cheaper than the 40 series, even though it's not that much cheaper. Also, this is an EVGA. I'm not saying it's going to be worth a whole lot, being it's the last EVGA card that's ever been made. It's something sentimental about having the last EVGA card out there, because I had no idea that they was going to get out of the GPU business, which from watching some of the videos that I've seen and some of the stats and the cooling, unless you're going to do what I had for the GeForce 2080 Super, which is, that one was a water cooler with a radiator, and to me, unless you're going to do that, it's going to be difficult to compete with nvidia, who's launching their own card. And really, I'm not going to be surprised if more AIBs leave the nest of GPUs, because really, I just don't think that there's not really any other cooling solutions that you can do outside of water and radiator cooling solutions that will be able to compete with what nvidia has, from what I've seen. Also, on the technical side, really, my motherboard really just isn't ready for a 4090. My processor, my motherboard, I would have to go out here and buy one of these $600 processors really to even tap into hardly any of what the 4090 can do, which I didn't know they do have a mechanism for frame insertion using their optical functionality, and so that's good, being able to interpolate frames. But I don't know if that's going to help out my CPU. Like I said, I got an i9 9900K, and I used to be able to get 5 gigahertz out of it, but now it's just it's just getting old. So I'm gonna have to upgrade pretty soon. But man, this stuff is expensive. That's the point. If you get a 4090, you're going to be updating more than just your GPU. And the reality of the matter is that, yeah, maybe that optical tensor core will help out the frame, but at the end of the day, if you have a motherboard that's a PCI 4, you're just fooling yourself and thinking that you're going to get everything out of the 40 series. That's the reason why I didn't upgrade to the 40 series. The 40 series right now is not that much expensive than what I got, because I paid $13.99 for this GPU. Is probably overpricing it, but it's really, to be out totally honest with you, the price is still there, so I don't feel like that I've lost a whole lot of money. The price is still around there, especially for EVGA. I think the EVGA price went back up to $1,800, and then you got the other AIBs. And not to say that those don't work, excellent, but you are going down a tier. But the question now is will I ever buy a 4090? Well, probably. But again, my thoughts is that we are in the power era. No more efficiency, no more, let's try this. It's becoming to the point where physically we're not able to, we don't have the technology to make a transistor on the atomic level. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the other builds, the 4 and 5 nanometer, those are basically atomic levels, but I mean, to just say, for instance, that they come out with the 2 nanometer, I mean, you're going to be talking about real technology advancement. When you dealing with stuff that size, I mean, you're talking about a sub RAM within what we call the real world. So you talking about stuff on atomic level. You guys seen my video for making processors and stuff like that, and how hard it is to come by nowadays. And the 40 series, you can't find that nowhere, so people are still buying them up. I think nvidia is going to make a lot of money, but at the same time, I think nvidia is going to continue to win in the GPU because they're visionaries and they understand that Moore's law is dead and it's going to be a power situation now. Like I said, the 4090 is already 600 watts. I'm pretty sure the next generation car is going to be 1,000 watts, and the guys who make the PCUs and things like that, man, it's going to be really, really difficult for them because they may have to change the interface of how power supplies are made. They may have to change the way motherboards are made and make them like stereo motherboards where all the power supply and all that stuff is integrated. I mean, it's going to be a mess, man. And so your motherboard is going to have to be equipped to probably handle like 2,000 watts of power. And I think it's going to be like a stereo. I mean, you're going to have this big ginormous transformer going into the motherboard. I think next generation is going to change forever, man, especially if they don't figure out a way make these GPUs be more efficient. I mean, because I'm looking at AMD, and from what I'm seeing, and it may change November the 2nd, but from what I'm seeing, it looks like they're going to be going for the power as well, especially if these people want ray tracing and all this other bells and whistles. But yeah, I do think nvidia are the visionaries. I've said this, and I know my video's been slammed and nobody's probably seen it, but you take a look and go down in those videos. This ain't the first time that I mentioned this. nvidia are visionaries, and what they're doing is saying, okay, we know we're not going to be able to increase power the way it was back in the day, so what we're going to do is we're going to go with the feature set. And that's awesome. I mean, they got the DLSS 3 and they got the optical stuff, they got the graphic stuff, so that, you know, ray tracing and stuff can be done a lot better and more efficient. And so, you know, I wish there was a easier way to do ray tracing, because, you know, look, I don't really see the difference in it between regular rasterization. And I said this before, I do understand that in order to get to the next level of graphics, you have to have ray tracing, just for the simple fact that ray tracing has a peak and the requirements that is needed for it. And if you get to a certain level in technology, that means that you can develop a lot faster using ray tracing versus using traditional rasterization. So I do understand the importance of ray tracing and why it needs to be here, and how it's going to take us to the next level. But at the same time, there's just a lot going on with the power requirements and how that power is going to be integrated into the motherboard. And I honestly believe that for this next generation, the motherboards, I honestly believe there's going to be a GPU that's going to require 1,000 watts to be powered up. And, you know, they got all these cores now. You know, it's just absolutely crazy. So there's a lot of other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to mention in this video. But tell me what y'all think about the 40 series. I mean, I think the 40 series, them going into the direction of features, is a very, very smart thing to do, because I think we're capping out on Moore's law. I do think that we are getting to the point where features and optimizations on how we do things, such like ray tracing, and I know ray tracing isn't an optimization by itself, but in the grand scheme of things, it is an optimization. But it's going to take a lot of power for us to get there. And I do love where nvidia is going with this, with the 40 series. I think that these companies know that the power requirements is becoming outrageous, and they have to give us more in order to say, hey, look, it's worth jumping. And I think nvidia's done a really good job of that. AMD is another situation. I'm not going to get into them. I'm just going to go ahead and wait. But I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of disappointment with the AMD releases. I mean, I'm hearing like all type of stuff. It's seeming to go in the direction of disappointment. So, but nvidia has outclassed everyone again, and I think they're trying to eliminate that AIB situation and with the video cards, and they're just trying to become a monopoly, which they kind of are, because I just don't think AMD is competing with them. I just don't think they are, man. And you know, the day that PlayStation goes to nvidia will be a great day. Get an ARM processor integrated with what nvidia's doing, and do it on a bigger scale. You know, you can have these features and you can be a monopoly. So that's what it's all about. That's what business is all about. Unfortunately, I know that people wish that every game was on every console. There's some people, I've heard some people talk about that, and I might still make a video about that, but that's just not reality. Anyway, I've talked long enough. So if you like the channel, come back, and until then, the truth shall set you free. Later.